in the shadowed depths of the Pacific Northwest, where towering evergreens whispered secrets to the wind, a desperate search was underway. The community of Cedar Hollow was gripped by fear. An 8-year-old boy named Ethan had vanished without a trace, swallowed by the vast, untamed wilderness that stretched like a green ocean around the town. Days had passed since Ethan's disappearance, and with each hour, hope waned, replaced by a chilling dread that settled like frost over every heart. Jake Lawson stood at the edge of the forest, his gaze sharp beneath the brim of his weathered cap. A decorated Navy SEAL, Jake had returned home recently, the echoes of distant battles still coursing through his mind like a restless storm. His broad shoulders carried the weight of experience, but beneath the stoic exterior lurked an undercurrent of unease. Memories he had yet to reconcile. Beside him, Rex, his loyal K-9 partner, sniffed the air with practiced intensity, nostrils flaring as he sought the faintest trace of the missing boy. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The morning air was crisp, tinged with the scent of pine and damp earth. A light drizzle blurred the edges of the towering trees, casting a veil of melancholy over the forest floor littered with moss and fallen leaves. Jake's breath came in steady puffs, his eyes scanning the terrain with the precision of a man who had faced danger countless times, but never one quite like this. This was no battlefield with clear lines and enemy positions. It was a living maze of shadows and silence, where every step could mean life or death. The community had called on Jake because of his unique skills, his ability to navigate treacherous environments and coax answers from the wilderness. The local authorities, overwhelmed and under-resourced, had welcomed his help, though not without reservations. Deputy Harris, the lead search coordinator, had been skeptical of Jake's methods, but desperation had softened his stance. Now, as Jake and Rex moved deeper into the forest, the tension between them was a distant echo drowned out by the urgency of the mission. Ethan had disappeared on a family camping trip 3 days earlier. The boy's mother, Claire, had reported him missing after a brief moment of inattention, a lapse that had shattered her world. Claire was a woman of quiet strength, her determination unwavering despite the gnawing fear that gripped her heart. She had waited anxiously at the edge of the search zone, clutching a worn photograph of Ethan, eyes scanning every face for a glimmer of hope. Jake had met Claire only once before joining the search, but her pain was etched deeply in his memory. He understood loss in ways few could, and it fueled his resolve to find the boy alive. Rex, sensing the gravity of the task, moved with a focused intensity, nose to the ground, ears flicking with every subtle sound. Together, they were a formidable team, united by a bond forged through countless missions and trials. As they pushed forward, the forest seemed to close in around them. The underbrush thickened, and the path became less defined, forcing Jake to rely on his instincts and Rex's keen senses. The terrain was treacherous. Moss-covered rocks slick with rain, hidden roots that threatened to trip the unwary, and the ever-present threat of sudden weather shifts. The sky above roiled with darkening clouds, and the distant rumble of thunder hinted at a storm approaching. Despite the growing peril, Jake felt a steady calm settle over him. This was where he belonged, in the wild, where every moment demanded vigilance and courage. Each scent Rex caught, each broken twig beneath their feet, was a clue in the silent narrative of the forest. Hours passed as they wove through the maze of trees, the weight of time pressing down with relentless urgency. Suddenly, Rex halted, ears pricked and tail stiffening. He circled a small patch of earth, nose quivering as he locked onto an invisible thread. Jake crouched beside him, eyes narrowing as he studied the disturbed ground. There, a faint imprint, barely discernible. A footprint, small and delicate, pressed into the soft soil. Hope surged within Jake's chest like a sudden blaze. Carefully, he traced the path Rex indicated, each step measured and deliberate. The trail was faint, but unmistakably human. It wound through thickets and around ancient trunks, leading deeper into the heart of the forest, where light struggled to penetrate the dense canopy. Jake's mind raced with possibilities, but he pushed them aside, focusing solely on the trail before him. As they followed, Jake's thoughts drifted momentarily to the boy he sought. Ethan, young, vulnerable, lost in a world far larger and more unforgiving than any battlefield Jake had ever faced. The image of the boy's wide, frightened eyes haunted him, igniting a fierce determination. Jake knew that every second counted. The forest was both protector and predator, and survival depended on more than just skill. It demanded heart. The rain began to fall in earnest now, a steady cascade that blurred the edges of the world and soaked through Jake's jacket. Yet neither he nor Rex faltered. The scent grew stronger, mingling with the earthy aroma of wet leaves and decaying wood. Jake's pulse quickened as they approached a small clearing, the space opening like a breath amidst the dense woodland. There, half hidden beneath a tangle of branches, lay a small backpack, Ethan's. Jake's fingers trembled slightly as he reached out, brushing away the wet leaves. The bag was intact, but signs of a struggle were evident. Scattered items, a broken fishing lure, and a torn piece of fabric snagged on a bramble. The discovery shattered any lingering doubts. Ethan had been here, close, but still out of reach. Jake knelt, pressing his palm to the cold earth, whispering a silent promise. Rex sat obediently by his side, head tilted as if sensing the gravity of the moment. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the usual chorus of birds and insects, muffled by the rain and the weight of uncertainty. As the storm gathered overhead, Jake stood and scanned the horizon, determination hardening his features. This was only the beginning. The boy was alive, and Jake would find him, no matter what the forest hid, no matter the dangers that lurked unseen. The bond between man and dog, forged in adversity, was their greatest weapon against the shadows. With a final glance at the clearing, Jake adjusted Rex's harness and set off once more, each step a heartbeat closer to the child lost within the green labyrinth. The forest whispered around them, ancient and inscrutable. But neither Jake nor Rex wavered. In this relentless pursuit, hope was their compass, and the promise of finding Ethan alive fueled every stride into the unknown. The dense canopy of Mount Rainier's wilderness loomed overhead, a fortress of ancient trees and tangled undergrowth that seemed to hold the secrets of centuries within its sprawling roots. The forest stretched endlessly, a mosaic of shadows and light where the air was thick with the scent of pine, damp earth, and the distant promise of rain. This was the rugged heart of the Pacific Northwest, a place both breathtaking in its beauty and unforgiving in its wildness. It was here, amid the towering firs and whispering leaves, that Jake Lawson had returned. Not just as a man, but as a warrior tempered by the fires of battle and the quiet scars of memory. Jake's boots crunched softly on the moss-covered ground as he moved with the silent grace of a seasoned operator. His broad frame was cloaked in muted earth tones, designed to blend seamlessly with the forest's palette. His eyes, sharp and scanning, betrayed a mind that never ceased analyzing, calculating risks and possibilities with the precision of a tactician. Though the war zones of distant deserts and urban battlegrounds had once defined him, it was this wild, untamed landscape that now tested him in ways he had never imagined. The stories of this land were etched in every gnarled branch and rocky outcrop. Locals whispered of the mountain's moods, the sudden storms that could trap the unwary, the hidden ravines that swallowed footsteps without a sound. Mount Rainier's wilderness was a crucible, a place where only the vigilant endured. And Jake was no stranger to vigilance. His return from deployment had been marked by a restless unease, a battle within that paralleled the conflicts he had faced abroad. The forests offered no easy peace, only a challenging terrain where his skills were both a shield and a burden. Ethan's disappearance had shattered the fragile calm of Cedar Hollow, a tight-knit community nestled on the mountain's edge. The boy's single mother, Claire, was a figure of quiet resilience. She worked long hours at the local diner, balancing the weight of providing for her son with the ever-present fear that gnawed at her heart. Their bond was strong, woven from years of shared struggles and tender moments. Yet recent hardships had stretched their connection thin, fraying the edges of their once unshakable trust. Claire's eyes had held a mixture of hope and despair the first time she met Jake. She had listened as he explained his approach to the search, his military discipline tempered by empathy. Her faith in the local authorities had been tested by their limited resources and the growing frustration of unanswered questions. But Jake's presence was a beacon, a promise that someone with the skills and determination to find Ethan was now leading the charge. As Jake adjusted his pack and prepared to delve deeper into the wilderness, memories flickered behind his gaze. Flashbacks of distant missions, of comrades lost and battles fought in foreign lands, surfaced unbidden. Each memory was a reminder of the fragility of life and the weight of survival. Yet here, in this dense forest, the stakes felt more intimate, more urgent. This was not about strategic victories or military objectives. This was about a child's life hanging in the balance. Rex, ever vigilant, padded silently at Jake's side. The black German shepherd's keen senses were unmatched, his loyalty unwavering. Together, they formed a unit honed by years of training and unspoken understanding. Rex's presence was a comfort, a living bridge between Jake's past and the mission ahead. The dog's intelligence and sensitivity to the environment made him an invaluable partner in the search, capable of detecting scents and sounds imperceptible to human senses. The forest around them was alive with subtle motion, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a raven, the faint drip of water from heavy branches. Jake's mind cataloged these details even as he focused on the path ahead. The terrain was unforgiving. Steep inclines blanketed in thick moss, tangled roots that twisted like serpents beneath the soil, and narrow ravines that could easily conceal danger. Weather patterns here were notoriously unpredictable, with sudden shifts that could turn a search into a fight for survival. Jake recalled the early morning briefing with Deputy Harris, the local search coordinator who had been cautious, even skeptical, of Jake's approach. Their initial friction had given way to a grudging respect, born of necessity and shared concern. Harris was a man bound by duty to his community, but hampered by limited manpower and equipment. Jake's methods, marked by military precision and an insistence on systematic tracking, clashed with the deputy's more traditional protocols. Yet they were united by a common goal, and that alliance was vital. The boy's disappearance had ignited a storm of emotions across Cedar Hollow. Families volunteered for search parties, local businesses donated supplies, and neighbors exchanged whispered fears over coffee and late-night phone calls. Claire remained at the forefront, her eyes scanning every face for news, her heart aching with every unanswered call. Her exhaustion was masked by determination. She refused to surrender to despair. Jake's own internal battle was less visible, but no less fierce. The transition from soldier to civilian was a precarious path, littered with the remnants of trauma and the weight of unspoken sacrifices. The woods, with their silence and solitude, were both sanctuary and crucible. Here, he confronted not only the physical challenges of the terrain, but the ghosts that trailed him like shadows. As they moved forward, Jake's thoughts returned to Ethan. The boy's innocence, the fragile thread of his survival, became a lodestar that guided every step. Jake's training had taught him to focus on objectives, but this mission demanded more: compassion, patience, and an unwavering commitment to hope. The forest was vast, but Jake believed that within its depths lay the answers they sought. The sun, filtered through layers of mist and canopy, cast a muted glow on the damp earth. Jake paused at a ridge, scanning the horizon where the mountain's silhouette rose against the sky. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faintest hint of human scent, fresh and urgent. Rex's ears perked, and he shifted forward, muscles coiled like springs ready to launch. Together, man and dog descended toward the source, moving with quiet determination through the underbrush. The search had broadened from a simple recovery to a complex puzzle, one that required every ounce of Jake's skill and every trace Rex could find. There was no room for error, no margin for hesitation. In the stillness of the forest, Jake felt the weight of his past and the promise of the future converge. The wilderness was both adversary and ally, a place where survival depended on respect for the land and trust in one's own instincts. With each step deeper into the unknown, Jake reaffirmed his resolve to bring Ethan home, safe, whole, and surrounded by the love that awaited him beyond the trees. The journey was far from over, but in this moment, beneath the ancient boughs of Mount Rainier, a quiet determination settled over Jake Lawson. The boy's fate was entwined with his own, and no matter the trials ahead, he would not falter. The wilderness held its breath, and the search pressed on. The forest air had grown heavy with the scent of rain and damp pine, the sky above thickening with dark clouds that promised an impending storm. Jake Lawson tightened the straps on his pack as he pressed forward, his boots sinking slightly into the softened earth beneath the towering evergreens. The dense wilderness around Mount Rainier was no place for hesitation. And the third day of the search for Ethan weighed heavily on everyone involved. Time was slipping away, and with it, the fragile thread of hope that the boy was still alive. Ethan had vanished during a family camping trip, a brief moment of distraction turning into an agonizing nightmare. His mother, Claire, had agonized over every second, replaying her last moments of inattention as if searching for a clue in her own memory. The community's collective breath seemed to catch with every passing hour, the fear and urgency palpable in every whispered conversation and hurried phone call. Jake's focus was razor-sharp as he navigated the increasingly treacherous terrain. The forest, once a place of quiet beauty, had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and uncertainty. The thick underbrush clawed at his pants, roots twisted beneath his feet, and slick rocks threatened to send him tumbling down hidden ravines. Yet he moved with a steady determination, guided by Rex, whose nose never faltered in its search for Ethan's scent. Local authorities had been stretched thin since Ethan's disappearance, their limited manpower and resources straining under the pressure. Deputy Harris, the lead search coordinator, had taken charge of the official efforts, coordinating volunteers and managing logistics. But tensions simmered beneath the surface. Harris was a man bound by duty and cautious pragmatism, skeptical of Jake's unconventional methods and military background. Their interactions were marked by a polite but palpable friction. Harris wary of Jake's intensity, Jake frustrated by the bureaucracy that slowed progress. As they moved deeper into the forest, Jake's mind replayed their last exchange. Harris had questioned the validity of tracking techniques that relied heavily on Rex's instincts, favoring instead grid searches and systematic sweeps. Jake had insisted that time was against them, and that following the dog's lead was their best chance to find Ethan alive. The deputy's reluctant agreement had set them on this path, but the tension lingered like a shadow behind every step. The worsening weather mirrored the growing urgency. Rain began to fall in thin sheets, soaking the foliage and turning the earth to mud. Visibility dropped as mist curled around the trunks, muffling sounds and distorting the familiar. The forest's usual symphony, the chirping of birds, the rustle of small creatures, fell silent, replaced by the steady patter of rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Each moment felt charged with anticipation, the storm a physical manifestation of the crisis unfolding beneath the canopy. Rex suddenly halted, his body tense and alert. Jake dropped to one knee beside him, watching as the dog's nose twitched, sniffing the air with urgent intensity. There, faint but unmistakable, was the scent. A human scent, recent and fragile, weaving through the damp earth and fallen leaves. Jake's heart quickened. The trail was growing stronger, a beacon in the murky wilderness. They followed the scent cautiously, navigating around gnarled roots and fallen branches. The path led them to a small clearing, where the remnants of an abandoned campsite lay scattered beneath the rain-soaked trees. A battered tent frame sagged under the weight of rainwater, its fabric torn and fluttering like a wounded flag. Nearby, a smoldering fire pit, cold now, was surrounded by scattered belongings, a broken fishing lure, a tattered jacket, and a crumpled map. Jake's eyes scanned the scene, noting signs of recent activity. The disturbed ground bore footprints, some small and delicate, others larger and muddied. The evidence painted a picture far more troubling than a simple lost child. Something had happened here. Something that went beyond a boy wandering too far. A sudden crack of thunder jolted Jake from his thoughts. He glanced up to see dark clouds roiling overhead, the first heavy drops of rain splattering against his face. The forest seemed to close in around them, shadows deepening, the wind whispering warnings through the branches. Time was running out. As Jake examined the campsite, his mind flickered with memories that felt both distant and immediate. Flashbacks of past missions, of moments when lives hung in the balance, surged forth. He remembered the faces of comrades lost, the weight of responsibility that had never truly lifted. Those experiences fueled his resolve now, compelling him to push forward despite the growing dangers. Behind him, Rex growled softly, sensing a threat that Jake could not yet see. The dog's instincts were a lifeline in this hostile environment, attuned to dangers lurking beyond human perception. Jake's hand went to the sidearm at his hip, a comforting weight in the storm's rising tension. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush caught their attention. Jake spun toward the sound, eyes narrowing as he scanned the darkened woods. The movement was fleeting, a shadow darting between trees, too quick to identify. His breath caught, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. "Ethan?" Jake called softly, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. Silence answered. The realization was grim. Ethan was not simply lost. He was hiding, possibly running from something or someone. The implications twisted Jake's gut with unease. This was no longer a straightforward rescue. The boy's disappearance was entangled in a deeper, darker mystery. Jake motioned Rex forward, the dog weaving through the undergrowth with practiced ease. They continued their search, moving cautiously through the rain-drenched forest. Every sense was heightened, every shadow a potential threat. The weight of the mission pressed down, demanding vigilance and courage. Back at the command post, Deputy Harris coordinated search teams, his face etched with fatigue and tension. The growing storm complicated communications and logistics, but he remained resolute. Despite their differences, he knew Jake's expertise was crucial, and he grudgingly respected the man's relentless drive. Claire waited anxiously, her hands trembling as she clutched a photograph of Ethan. The community's prayers and hopes rested on the shoulders of Jake and Rex, the pair who ventured into the unknown with unwavering determination. Her love for her son was a silent force, a beacon that guided the search through darkness and uncertainty. As night began to fall, the forest grew colder and more menacing. The storm unleashed its fury, rain pounding the earth in relentless sheets, thunder booming like distant artillery. Jake and Rex pressed on, driven by the fragile hope that Ethan was still out there, waiting to be found. The search was no longer just about tracking footprints or following scents. It was a race against time, against nature's fury, and against unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. Jake's military training, tempered by the raw emotion of the mission, propelled him forward. Every step was a testament to the bond between man and dog, to the power of resilience in the face of fear. And deep within the forest, somewhere beyond the reach of rain and thunder, Ethan waited, alone, frightened, but alive. Jake knew that finding him was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead. The forest around Mount Rainier had taken on an eerie stillness, the storm having passed but leaving behind a heavy cloak of mist that clung to the trees and blanketed the forest floor. Jake Lawson crouched low beside Rex, the black German shepherd's nose to the ground, tracing the faintest scent trails amid the damp earth and fallen leaves. The air was thick with the scent of pine and moss, but beneath it lay something more urgent, a trace of fear, of desperation. It was the scent of a child lost and hiding, and Jake's heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. They had come upon an abandoned campsite the previous day, evidence suggesting that Ethan's disappearance was far more than a simple accident. The scattered belongings, the broken fishing lure, and the torn fabric hinted at a struggle, a frantic attempt to escape something unseen. The weight of that realization pressed heavily on Jake's shoulders as he pushed deeper into the wilderness, determined to uncover the truth and find the boy alive. The underbrush was thick here, branches snaking out like grasping fingers, and the ground was uneven, layered with moss and slick from the recent rains. Every step required careful footing, every movement deliberate to avoid alerting whatever might be lurking nearby. Jake's military training kicked in fully, his senses heightened as he scanned the shadows, attuned to the smallest sounds, the snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a crow. Suddenly, Rex stopped abruptly, ears pricked and body tense. Jake followed the dog's gaze to a narrow path winding away from the clearing, hidden beneath a curtain of vines and low branches. The trail was faint, barely visible, but unmistakably fresh. Jake's pulse quickened. This was the lead they had been waiting for. He signaled to Rex, who moved forward cautiously, nose to the ground, weaving through the brush with practiced ease. Jake followed, every muscle coiled with anticipation. The path led them deeper into the forest, away from the relative openness of the campsite and into a darker, more secluded area where the trees grew close and the air grew colder. As they pressed on, Jake's mind drifted briefly to memories from his past. moments of loss and survival that had shaped him. Flashbacks flickered like shadows. A comrade fallen in a distant desert. A mission gone sideways. The hollow ache of grief and the unyielding drive to protect those who could not protect themselves. Those memories fueled his resolve now, anchoring him against the mounting fear and uncertainty. The trail ended at the entrance to a shallow cave, hidden behind a curtain of ivy and moss-covered rocks. Jake's breath caught as he peered inside, the darkness swallowing the narrow opening like a hungry maw. The forest's natural light faded, replaced by the cool gloom within. Rex growled softly, alert and protective. "Ethan?" Jake called gently, voice steady despite the knot tightening in his stomach. No answer came, only the faint drip of water echoing from within. Jake crouched beside the cave entrance, eyes adjusting to the dimness, searching for any sign of the boy. Inside, scattered belongings lay abandoned, a small backpack, a worn blanket, and a tattered book. The remnants spoke volumes. Ethan had been here, seeking refuge from an unknown threat. Jake's heart ached at the thought of the boy alone and frightened, hiding in the cold shadows while the forest held its breath outside. Rex nosed deeper into the cave, muscles tense as he pressed forward. Jake followed cautiously, the walls narrowing as they ventured further in. The air grew damp and musty, filled with the scent of earth and something faintly metallic. Then, a soft whimper echoed from the depths. Jake's chest tightened as he moved toward the sound. There, curled against the rocky wall, was Ethan, dirty, shivering, but alive. The boy's wide eyes met Jake's, filled with a mixture of fear and relief. Jake knelt slowly, offering a reassuring smile. "It's okay, Ethan. You're safe now." The boy's body trembled as he reached out hesitantly, fingers brushing Jake's hand. The connection was fragile but real, a promise of protection and hope. Jake wrapped Ethan in his jacket, shielding him from the damp chill. As he comforted the boy, Jake's gaze caught sight of a scrap of fabric caught on a jagged rock nearby, torn and stained. It was a clue, a silent testament to the danger Ethan had faced. The realization hit Jake hard. Ethan's disappearance wasn't accidental. The boy had been hiding from someone, from something far more sinister than the forest itself. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "They're still out there. I saw them." Jake's eyes locked onto the boy's, the weight of those words settling heavily between them. The forest, once a place of refuge, had become a battleground. The mission had shifted from rescue to survival. With a steadying breath, Jake scanned the cave entrance and beyond. The storm might have passed, but the darkness lingered. He knew this was only the beginning. Ethan's safety depended on uncovering the truth lurking in the shadows of the wilderness. Outside, the wind stirred, carrying with it the faintest hint of danger and the promise of a fight yet to come. Jake's military instincts flared. He would not leave this place without the boy, no matter the cost. Gently, he lifted Ethan into his arms, the boy's small frame fragile but determined. Rex fell in step beside them, alert and ready. Together, they began the cautious journey back through the forest, each step a heartbeat closer to safety, but also deeper into the unknown. As they emerged from the cave's shadow, the first rays of dawn pierced the mist, casting a pale light over the rugged landscape. The wilderness seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Jake's mind raced with questions and plans. Who had threatened Ethan? What secrets did this forest conceal? The answers were out there, tangled in the undergrowth and whispered by the wind. But for now, the priority was clear. Protect the boy, keep him safe, and prepare for the challenges ahead. The bond between them was a fragile lifeline, forged in fear and hope, and Jake vowed to hold on to it with everything he had. The forest, vast and ancient, watched silently as man and boy moved forward. Two souls bound by fate, stepping into a future shadowed by danger, but lit by the unyielding flame of survival. The morning light filtered softly through the towering canopy as Jake Lawson carried Ethan carefully through the dense underbrush. The boy's small frame was limp in his arms, his face pale but grateful, eyes flickering with a mix of relief and lingering fear. The forest, once a place of terror and secrets, now seemed to breathe with a tentative calm, the whispering leaves and distant bird calls offering a fragile promise of safety. As they emerged from the shadows of the cave, Jake's mind raced with the weight of the discovery. Ethan had been found, alive, frightened, but alive. Yet the evidence before them painted a grim picture. This was no mere accident, no simple case of a lost child. The boy had been hiding, evading a threat that lurked unseen within the wilderness. The realization settled heavily on Jake's shoulders, sharpening his resolve. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper as he clung to Jake's jacket. "They're still out there," he said, eyes wide with terror. "I saw them. I don't know what they want, but they're dangerous." Jake's gaze hardened. The forest, which had concealed Ethan, now seemed to conceal something far darker. His military instincts flared, every muscle coiled, senses alert to the unseen dangers that might still be nearby. Protecting Ethan was no longer just about bringing him home. It was about confronting whatever shadow had driven the boy into hiding. Carefully, Jake settled Ethan onto a bed of dry leaves beneath a towering Douglas fir. He knelt beside the boy, offering a steadying hand, his voice calm and reassuring. "You're safe now. Tell me what you saw." Ethan hesitated, eyes darting toward the dense thicket as if expecting the threat to emerge from the shadows at any moment. Then, in a trembling voice, he began to describe what had haunted him. A group of men, strangers with cold eyes and harsh voices, had been camping nearby, their presence marked by whispered threats and furtive glances. Ethan had stumbled upon them by accident, overheard a conversation that chilled him to the bone. They were involved in something illegal, something dangerous. Jake listened intently, piecing together the fragments of the boy's story. The men had been discussing plans, their voices low but urgent, speaking of shipment and moving goods in coded language. Ethan had hidden, terrified, watching as they searched the area, oblivious to his presence. His disappearance was no accident. It was a desperate act of survival. The implications hit Jake hard. This wasn't just a missing child case. It was a window into a darker underworld hidden within the wilderness. Human trafficking, drug smuggling, or something worse might be at play. The forest's beauty masked a brutal reality. Rex, sensing the tension, circled protectively, ears flicking toward every sound. Jake's gaze swept the surrounding trees, alert for any sign of pursuit. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the usual chorus of wildlife subdued, as if aware of the danger lurking nearby. Jake reached into his pack, retrieving a first aid kit and tending to Ethan's scrapes and bruises with practiced care. The boy flinched, but remained still, the trust between them growing with every gentle movement. Jake's calm presence was a lifeline amidst the chaos. With Ethan stabilized, Jake pulled out his radio, voice low but urgent, as he contacted Deputy Harris. "We've found the boy alive, but there's more to this than a simple disappearance. He's seen people, criminals operating in the area. We need backup and federal assistance immediately." Static crackled before Harris's reply came, tinged with concern, but tinged with disbelief. Copy that, Jake. I'll coordinate with the sheriff's office and get the feds involved. Stay put and keep the boy safe. Jake nodded, though Harris couldn't see him. He turned back to Ethan, offering a small smile. Help is on the way. You're going to be okay. The boy nodded, exhaustion etched into his features. I want to go home. Jake's heart ached with the weight of that simple wish. Home was a place of safety and love, a stark contrast to the shadows they faced here. But first, the threat had to be confronted, the network that had terrorized Ethan exposed and dismantled. As they waited, Jake's thoughts drifted to the coming hours. The forest was vast and the enemy hidden well. The men Ethan had described were dangerous, likely armed and desperate. Jake's training prepared him for this, a tactical mind honed by years of military service, a keen awareness of the stakes at hand. The sun climbed higher, piercing through the mist to illuminate the rugged landscape. The distant sound of engines and voices signaled the arrival of reinforcements. Jake tightened his grip on Rex's collar, eyes scanning the perimeter for any signs of movement. Moments later, federal agents and local law enforcement moved swiftly into the clearing, their presence a surge of hope and authority. Jake briefed the team, relaying Ethan's account and the evidence found at the campsite and cave. The operation shifted gears, from search and rescue to a coordinated raid aimed at dismantling the criminal network lurking in the shadows. The agents deployed with precision, moving silently through the forest under Jake's guidance. The tension was palpable. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves could signal danger or discovery. Jake's military discipline kept the group focused, the weight of responsibility heavy but shared. Meanwhile, Claire waited anxiously at the command post, surrounded by friends and neighbors whose faces reflected the community's collective hope and fear. When Jake's radio crackled with news of Ethan's safe recovery, a wave of relief swept through the room. Tears mingled with smiles as Claire clutched the photograph close, her voice breaking with gratitude. Back in the forest, the raid unfolded with swift intensity. Law enforcement agents moved in, surrounding a secluded cabin where the suspects had been operating. Inside, they found evidence of illegal activities, contraband, weapons, and documents linking the men to a broader criminal enterprise. The suspects were arrested without incident, their reign of terror in the wilderness brought to an abrupt end. Jake watched as the men were led away in handcuffs, the weight of justice settling over the clearing like a long-awaited dawn. Returning to Ethan, Jake knelt beside the boy, offering a reassuring smile. It's over now. You're safe. Ethan's eyes shone with a fragile hope, the first flicker of peace since his disappearance. The forest, once a place of fear, had become a sanctuary reclaimed by courage and resolve. As federal agents coordinated the next steps, Jake felt the familiar ache of battle, knowing this victory was but one chapter in a larger fight. The shadows in the wilderness had been exposed, but the scars left behind would take time to heal. For now, though, the mission was clear: protect the innocent, confront the darkness, and bring light to the hidden corners of a world too often forgotten. With Ethan safe and the criminals in custody, Jake's mind already turned toward the challenges ahead. The forest held many secrets, but so did the hearts of those who fought to protect it. And in that quiet moment beneath the towering trees of Mount Rainier, a bond was forged. A bond between a boy and a man, between hope and survival, between fear and the unyielding strength to face whatever lay beyond the shadows. The cold forest air bit into Jake Lawson's face as he crouched near the edge of the clearing, Ethan nestled safely in a blanket beside him. The boy's breathing had steadied, but the fear still lingered in his wide eyes, a silent reminder of the terror that had driven him into hiding. Jake's mind raced, not just with relief at finding Ethan alive, but with the heavy knowledge that the danger wasn't over. The shadows that had haunted the boy were still out there, lurking just beyond the tree line. Rex sat alert at Jake's side, ears swiveling, muscles coiled like a spring ready to snap. The dog's acute senses picked up what Jake could not. Subtle shifts in the wind, faint footsteps, the barely audible crack of a twig underfoot. The wilderness, once a refuge, had become a battleground where every sound could signal a threat. Ethan's whispered plea to leave his secret alone echoed in Jake's mind. But he knew better. The boy's safety depended on uncovering the truth hidden in the forest's shadows. With a steadying breath, Jake made a decision. They couldn't retreat now, not when the answers were so close. Carefully, Jake lifted Ethan into his arms, wrapping the blanket tighter against the chill. The boy's small hands gripped Jake's jacket, a fragile anchor in a world turned hostile. Jake's voice was soft but firm. "We're going to find out what's out there, Ethan. You're not alone." Rex led the way, nose to the ground, following a faint trail barely visible beneath the damp leaves. The footprints were fresh, their edges sharp against the softened earth, weaving through the dense underbrush like whispers in the dark. Jake's heart pounded with adrenaline and caution. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. The path led them deeper into the wilderness, away from the relative safety of the clearing and into a realm where the trees grew close and the light dimmed under the thick canopy. The air was heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, mingled with something else. An undercurrent of unease that prickled Jake's skin. Suddenly, Rex stopped. Ears erect, body rigid. Jake crouched beside him, eyes narrowing as he scanned the area. Fresh footprints led toward a secluded cabin, its weathered wood blending into the forest like a ghost. The structure was small and unwelcoming, windows dark and shuttered, surrounded by a tangle of weeds and broken branches. Jake's military training kicked in as he assessed the scene. The cabin was a stronghold, a base of operations for the men Ethan had described. Evidence of recent activity was everywhere. Discarded food wrappers, smoldering embers in a fire pit, and tire tracks pressed deep into the muddy earth. The place reeked of danger and desperation. Ethan's voice trembled beside him. "That's where they stay." Jake nodded, eyes scanning for vantage points and escape routes. They had stumbled upon the heart of a criminal operation, a place where fear and control were wielded like weapons. The forest had concealed this secret, but now it was exposed. He crouched beside Ethan, offering a reassuring smile. "We're going to get help and bring this to an end." The boy's eyes held a flicker of hope, but also the weight of trauma no child should bear. Jake felt the familiar ache of responsibility, the burden of a protector who must face darkness to shield the innocent. Using his radio, Jake contacted the federal agents coordinating the operation. His voice was low, but urgent. "I've located the cabin. Evidence of illegal activity is clear. We have to move carefully. The suspects are likely armed and dangerous." Static crackled before the response came. "Understood, Jake. Coordinates received. Backup is en route." Jake set about preparing for the confrontation. He checked his gear, ensuring his sidearm was loaded and accessible, and secured Ethan safely in a makeshift carrier fashioned from his jacket. Rex remained by his side, muscles taut and eyes scanning. The forest around them seemed to grow still, as if holding its breath. The distant sound of vehicles signaled the arrival of support, breaking the oppressive silence. Jake's mind sharpened, every instinct alert. Minutes later, a coordinated team of federal agents and local law enforcement emerged from the woods, moving swiftly and silently toward the cabin. Jake briefed them quickly, outlining the terrain, suspect behavior, and the urgency of capturing the criminals without endangering Ethan. The team split into tactical units, encircling the cabin with practiced precision. Jake took point alongside Rex, leading the approach with measured steps. The tension was palpable. The forest, once a sanctuary, was now a theater of conflict. Suddenly, movement flickered at a window. A shadow shifted, and a figure appeared, weapon in hand. The agents responded instantly, commands shouted, shots fired into the air as warnings. The suspects, caught off guard, hesitated. Jake's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "This is law enforcement. Come out with your hands up." The men inside the cabin reacted with panic, some attempting to flee through a back exit. Jake and his team moved swiftly, cutting off escape routes and securing the perimeter. The chase was brief, but intense, the suspects overwhelmed by the coordinated force. In the aftermath, the cabin was searched thoroughly. Evidence of illicit activities was uncovered. Drugs, weapons, and documents linking the men to a broader network of criminal enterprise. The operation was a decisive blow against a hidden threat that had cast a shadow over the wilderness. Jake watched as the suspects were handcuffed and led away, their faces a mixture of defeat and defiance. The weight of justice settled over the clearing like a cleansing wind. Turning back to Ethan, Jake knelt and offered a reassuring smile. "It's over. You're safe now." The boy's relief was palpable, a fragile light shining through the darkness. The bond between them, forged in fear and hope, was a testament to resilience and courage. As the agents secured the area and prepared for transport, Jake felt the familiar ache of a soldier who knew the fight was never truly over. But for now, in this quiet moment beneath the towering trees, a victory had been won. Ethan's whispered words echoed softly. "Thank you." Jake nodded, the weight of promise heavy but steadfast. Together, they would face whatever came next, bound by trust and the unyielding strength to survive. The secluded cabin stood silent now, its weathered walls bearing witness to the chaos that had unfolded within and around it. Under the gray Pacific Northwest sky, federal agents methodically combed through the remnants of a criminal enterprise that had thrived in the shadows of Mount Rainier's dense wilderness. Jake Lawson moved among them, his eyes sharp and focused, absorbing every detail, the discarded weapons, the stash of contraband, the hastily scrawled notes hinting at a broader operation. In the wake of the raid, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of relief and urgency. The men responsible had been apprehended, but the network they served remained a dark, sprawling web that threatened the community beyond this isolated clearing. Jake's military training pushed him to think beyond immediate victories, to anticipate the unseen threads that connected this cabin to a larger, more insidious force. Ethan sat nearby, wrapped securely in a warm blanket, his small frame gradually regaining strength after days of fear and flight. The boy's eyes, once wide with terror, now flickered with cautious hope. He had found safety, but the scars of what he'd witnessed lingered like shadows at the edges of his young mind. Jake knelt beside Ethan, offering a steady hand and a reassuring smile. "You did great, kid. You're safe now." Ethan's voice was soft but determined. "I saw them. I saw everything. They were moving people, like shadows in the woods. I think they were scared of being caught." The boy's words confirmed Jake's suspicions. This operation was part of a larger, more dangerous scheme, one that exploited the wilderness as a cover for human trafficking and other illicit activities. The forest's beauty masked a brutal underworld, and it was up to Jake and the federal agents to dismantle it. Jake's radio crackled with the arrival of additional federal support. The FBI and NCIS teams had mobilized quickly, their presence a testament to the gravity of the situation. Specialists and investigators swarmed the scene, cataloging evidence and preparing for a coordinated effort to trace the network's reach. Jake briefed the lead agents, recounting Ethan's testimony and the findings from the cabin. The pieces began to form a grim puzzle. Routes through the wilderness used to transport victims, safe houses scattered across remote locations, and a web of contacts embedded in nearby towns. The operation would require precision and secrecy. Any misstep could endanger lives and allow the criminals to slip away. Jake's military discipline and first-hand knowledge of the terrain made him an invaluable asset as the investigation expanded. Meanwhile, Ethan's mother, Claire, had been reunited with her son. The moment was raw and profound. Years of worry and fear distilled into a single embrace. Claire's gratitude toward Jake was immeasurable, her tears a bittersweet mixture of relief and sorrow for what had been endured. As the investigation deepened, Jake took on a protective role, not just as a rescuer, but as a guardian. He maintained close contact with Ethan, offering counsel and comfort, helping the boy navigate the complex emotions stirred by his ordeal. The bond they shared was a testament to resilience, a lifeline amid the chaos. The forest, once a place of mystery and menace, was now a battleground for justice. The agents coordinated raids on suspected safe houses, intercepted communications, and followed leads that stretched across counties. Each success brought them closer to unraveling the full extent of the trafficking ring. Jake's training as a Navy SEAL was tested beyond physical endurance. The psychological toll was immense, but his resolve remained unshaken. He understood that healing would take time, both for Ethan and the community scarred by the revelations. Rex, ever vigilant, became a symbol of hope and protection. The dog's presence comforted Ethan and bolstered the morale of the team. Together, man and dog were a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that courage and compassion could prevail. As days turned into weeks, the coordinated efforts began to bear fruit. Arrests piled up, networks dismantled, and survivors freed. The wilderness, once a silent accomplice to crime, was slowly reclaimed by justice and safety. Jake found himself mentoring Ethan and other at-risk youth, channeling his experiences into guidance and support. Claire became an advocate for child safety and awareness, her voice carrying weight in local and national arenas. The scars of the past remained, but so did the seeds of change. The community rallied around recovery, resilience, and the promise of a safer future. Through it all, Jake reflected on the fragile balance between danger and security, the unseen battles fought by those who protect the vulnerable, and the unbreakable bond forged between a man and a boy amidst the towering pines of the Pacific Northwest. The fight was far from over, but hope had been rekindled. And in that quiet wilderness, amid the towering trees and whispering winds, the promise of healing began to take root. The dawn broke over Cedar Hollow with a tentative warmth, the first light spilling through the towering evergreens that guarded the town like silent sentinels. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew and pine, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had gripped the community in recent weeks. News of the arrests and the dismantling of the trafficking ring had spread swiftly, igniting cautious hope among residents who had long lived under a cloud of fear. At the center of this fragile renewal stood Ethan, reunited with his mother Claire in the embrace of a community relieved and rallying around them. The boy's return was more than a personal victory. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of perseverance, and the unwavering commitment of those who had fought to bring him home. Jake Lawson watched from a distance as Ethan and Claire shared a quiet moment outside the local community center. The boy's eyes, though still marked by the shadows of his ordeal, now held a spark of life rekindled by safety and love. Jake's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. The mission had been fraught with danger and uncertainty, but seeing Ethan safe was a balm to the wounds carried by all who had been touched by the tragedy. The community's relief was tempered by the sobering reality uncovered in the past weeks. The trafficking ring had operated with a chilling efficiency, exploiting the wilderness's vastness and the community's trust. The arrests had sent shockwaves through Cedar Hollow and beyond, exposing a dark undercurrent that few had suspected beneath the serene facade. Federal authorities continued their work, piecing together the network's reach and bringing more perpetrators to justice. The operation had evolved into a comprehensive crackdown, with coordinated raids and investigations stretching across state lines. The law enforcement agencies involved praised Jake's expertise and tenacity, crediting his military training and relentless pursuit as pivotal in unraveling the complex web. Yet, amid the accolades and the unfolding justice, Jake wrestled with the lingering shadows within himself. The battlefield had shifted from foreign deserts to the wild forests of home, but the scars were no less real. The memories of the mission, the fear in Ethan's eyes, the hidden dangers lurking beneath the canopy, returned in quiet moments, a reminder of the fragile line between survival and loss. Seeking solace, Jake began counseling, determined to confront the trauma that had shadowed his return from deployment. The sessions were both painful and healing, a journey inward as challenging as any he had faced in the field. Through this process, Jake found new purpose, channeling his experiences into empathy and guidance. His involvement extended beyond the search and rescue. He took on a mentorship role for at-risk youth in the community, including Ethan, whose resilience inspired both. Jake's presence became a beacon of hope, a living testament to the power of perseverance and the bonds forged through adversity. Rex, ever faithful, remained by Jake's side, a symbol of protection and unwavering loyalty. The dog's calming presence soothed not only Ethan, but also the community, embodying the spirit of resilience that was slowly healing the wounds inflicted by fear and violence. Claire, transformed by her ordeal, emerged as a passionate advocate for child safety and wilderness awareness. She worked tirelessly to raise resources and educate families on protecting their children in the vast and often unpredictable outdoors. Her voice resonated through local forums and beyond, a clarion call born from love and experience. Together, the community of Cedar Hollow began to rebuild, not just homes and routines, but trust and safety. Neighborhood watches formed, educational programs were launched, and a renewed sense of vigilance took root. The wilderness, once seen as a source of fear, was reclaimed as a place of beauty and life, guarded by those who loved it. Jake often found himself reflecting beneath the vast sky, the silhouettes of towering pines framing his thoughts. The line between danger and safety, between darkness and light, was delicate and ever-shifting. Yet in that balance lay the essence of the human spirit, the courage to face the unknown, the strength to protect, and the hope to heal. Ethan's survival was a beacon in the night, a story of courage that rippled through the community and beyond. His journey from fear to safety underscored the importance of vigilance, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of crisis. As the seasons turned, Cedar Hollow transformed. The wounds left by the trafficking ring's shadow began to fade, replaced by resilience and unity. The forests whispered anew, no longer silent witnesses, but guardians of a community reborn. Jake stood at the edge of the woods one evening, Rex at his side, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. The journey had been arduous, the battles many. but the promise of tomorrow shone brighter than ever. In the delicate dance between darkness and light, between fear and hope, they had found strength. And as the stars emerged, glittering like distant fires above the towering evergreens, Jake felt a quiet peace settle within, a testament to the enduring power of courage, trust, and the unyielding will to protect those we love. The late afternoon sun filtered through the towering pines of Cedar Hollow, casting long shadows over the quiet town that had, until recently, been gripped by fear. The scars of the past months were still visible in the eyes of the townsfolk, in the whispered conversations at the local diner, and in the careful glances cast toward the surrounding wilderness. Yet beneath the surface, a powerful current of healing and transformation was beginning to take root. Jake Lawson stood on the worn wooden deck of the community center, his gaze sweeping over the gathering below. A group of teenagers, some familiar faces, others new to him, were assembled for the first session of a mentorship program Jake had helped establish. The initiative was born from the mission that had brought him back to Cedar Hollow: the search for Ethan and the dismantling of the trafficking ring that had shadowed their lives. Now, it was a beacon of hope, a chance to guide at-risk youth away from darkness and toward a future filled with possibility. Rex, ever faithful, lay at Jake's feet, alert but calm, his presence a comforting anchor for the group. The dog had become a symbol of protection and resilience in the community, his story intertwined with Jake's and Ethan's. Jake cleared his throat, his voice steady but warm as he addressed the young faces before him. I know some of you have faced challenges that seem overwhelming. I've been there, lost, scared, unsure of the path ahead. But there's always a way forward, and together, we're going to find it. The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Among the group was Ethan, sitting quietly but attentive. His journey from fear to hope, a living testament to the power of courage and support. Jake's mentorship was more than guidance. It was a lifeline, a way to break cycles of pain and isolation. As the session progressed, Jake shared stories, not just of hardship, but of resilience, of the strength found in facing fears and embracing help. He spoke of trust, of community, and of the bonds that could transform lives. The teens listened, some nodding, others hesitant, but all touched by the sincerity and hope in his words. Outside, the town was stirring with signs of renewal. Neighborhood watch groups patrolled the streets, school programs focused on safety and awareness flourished, and families gathered to support one another. Claire, Ethan's mother, had become a passionate advocate for child safety and wilderness education. Her tireless efforts had brought resources and attention to the cause, her voice a powerful force in local and regional forums. Jake often met with Claire, their shared experiences forging a partnership rooted in healing and action. Together, they worked to raise awareness, organize community events, and ensure that no child in Cedar Hollow would face the dangers that had once threatened Ethan. The wilderness itself, once a place of fear and mystery, was gradually reclaimed by the community's love and vigilance. Trails were maintained and monitored, emergency protocols established, and education programs introduced to teach respect and caution in the natural world. The forests whispered anew, not of danger, but of life, growth, and protection. Jake found solace in these efforts, his own journey toward healing intertwined with the community's. Counseling sessions helped him confront the lingering shadows of trauma, providing tools to navigate the complex emotions that came with his experiences. The support he received reinforced his commitment to serve not only as a protector, but as a mentor and advocate. Rex remained by his side through it all, a constant reminder of loyalty and courage. The dog's quiet presence soothed those around him, bridging gaps and offering comfort where words sometimes failed. Evenings in Cedar Hollow were now marked by gatherings, around fires, in community halls, and along the trails where laughter and stories replaced fear and silence. The town, bruised but unbroken, embraced a future shaped by resilience and unity. Jake's reflections often returned to the delicate balance between danger and safety. The thin line walked daily by those who protect and those who are protected. The stories of survival, like Ethan's, underscored the importance of vigilance and compassion, of standing together against unseen threats. As the stars emerged over the mountain ridges, Jake stood once more at the edge of the forest, Rex at his side. The journey ahead remained uncertain, but the path was clearer now, illuminated by hope, strengthened by community, and guided by the unyielding spirit to heal and protect. In the quiet night, the bond between man and dog, mentor and youth, community and wilderness, held firm, a testament to the power of courage, trust, and the enduring fight for a safer, brighter tomorrow. The night sky stretched vast and endless over Cedar Hollow, stars shimmering like distant fires against the deep velvet of the Pacific Northwest. Jake Lawson stood on the ridge overlooking the town, the silhouettes of towering pines etched against the horizon. Beside him, Rex sat quietly, ears twitching at the faint sounds of nocturnal life stirring below. The wilderness that had once been a place of shadow and fear now breathed a gentle, enduring calm, a testament to the resilience of those who had fought to protect it. Jake's gaze drifted downward, where the soft glow of porch lights and the muted hum of evening settled over the community. The journey that had brought him here was etched deeply in his memory. The frantic search through dense forest, the discovery of Ethan in the hidden cave, the confrontation with darkness, both human and wild. Each step had been a battle, not just against external threats, but against the fragile line between hope and despair within himself. He thought of Ethan, the boy who had survived against the odds, whose courage had ignited a spark of change in a town shadowed by fear. Their bond had grown beyond rescuer and rescued. It was a connection forged in shared trials, a testament to the power of trust and the human spirit. Jake had seen firsthand how survival depended not only on skill and strength, but on compassion, patience, and unwavering resolve. Rex nudged Jake's hand, a gentle reminder of the steadfast loyalty that had carried them through the darkest hours. The dog's presence was a symbol of protection and resilience, a living bridge between past and future. Together, they had navigated the wilderness and its dangers, emerging not unscathed but unbroken. The community below was healing, its wounds slowly knitting together through shared resolve and renewed vigilance. Families gathered with renewed purpose. Neighbors watched over one another, and the forests that had once concealed menace now stood as guardians of a reclaimed peace. The fight against the trafficking ring had exposed a hidden underworld, but it had also ignited a movement, a commitment to vigilance, safety, and support. Jake's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on his own journey from soldier to protector, from haunted veteran to mentor and advocate. The trauma that had followed him home was a silent companion, but through counseling and connection, he found pathways to healing. His role had expanded, from the battlefield to the community, from lone operator to a guiding presence for those who needed hope. Ethan's survival was a beacon, a story that rippled far beyond Cedar Hollow, reminding all who heard it of the fragile line between danger and safety, between darkness and light. It was a call to vigilance and compassion, a testament to the unseen battles fought by those who protect the vulnerable. Jake's eyes traced the constellations overhead, the same stars that had guided countless travelers through the night. He felt a quiet peace settle within, a recognition that while the journey was far from over, the path forward was marked by courage, trust, and the enduring strength to face whatever lay beyond the shadows. As the wind whispered through the pines, carrying with it the scent of earth and rain, Jake took a deep breath. The wilderness was vast and unpredictable, but within it, and within himself, he had found resilience. The bond between man and dog, between mentor and youth, between a community and its land, was unbreakable. In that moment, beneath the infinite sky, Jake Lawson understood that survival was more than endurance. It was the courage to protect, the will to heal, and the hope to rebuild. The night held its breath, and the promise of tomorrow gleamed bright among the stars.